Welcome to Growth Xperts Podcast. I'm your host, Derek Colin. In today's episode, we have Jose. He is the founder and CEO of Creso. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, Derek. How are you?
I'm good. So can you explain, your background and how it fits into the bigger picture over at Creso Capital Partners?
Sure. Creso Capital Partners, we are a leading middle market investment banking boutique firm. We provide advisory services for companies that are looking to sell or companies that are looking to raise capital. Typical transaction for us in the middle market is anywhere between 20 to 30 million all the way to 300 million.
Okay, awesome. And what does a typical day look like for you at Creso Partners?
Well, it really depends on the economic cycle. When the economic cycle is very active, we are mostly engaged selling companies. It's a good time to sell. There's a lot of available capital. There's a lot of buyers looking for new assets. And when the economic cycle is not as aggressive, it's a perfect timing for capital raising. A lot of companies positioning themselves for the future growth, so we help them with the cleaning up the balance sheet, and putting more working capital in the balance sheet. Or sometimes, actually, it's a good time to clean up partnerships. So we do a partners buyout, or we give some liquidity to some partners that want to retire. So the day varies. You wake up early in the morning to see a lot of documents flying in and out, and a lot of opportunities that you have to sort through. Right now, we're actually very busy, and in actually both fronts. We're selling a couple of companies, and then there's a flurry of companies that have indicated that this is the right time for them to bolster the balance sheet.
Oh, okay. Nice. And what do you look for in terms of, your investment thesis? I know you said 20 million to up to 300 million. What do you look for in a company that says, okay, has stability. This is something that we can look at when it comes to, providing our advisory services on the sell side? Or do you mainly work on buy side?
No, we mostly work on the sales side. And what we look for is, we normally work with owner operated businesses. So they're different than a professional or managed company. The owner operated is really in depth in the business, and they treat the business as part of the family, even like a kid. So they have a lot of attachment. And our role is to maximize their outcome. And the outcome means that when they're selling, they could be selling 100%, but most of the time, these companies only sell a portion, which is 60, 70, 80%. When that happens, it becomes really a partnership with the new buyer. So we make sure that the new buyer is aligned with the vision and expectations of the seller. So we try to look for that. That's number one. Number two is we look for what we call an enterprise value, whether it's on a cash flow basis, revenue basis, or other intangibles that commands a premium in the market. Companies that we've sold, they were normally the leading companies in their respective industries, so they always command a premium and a high level of interest from potential buyers.
Okay, gotcha. When someone wants to come, look to you for advisory when it comes to selling their company, what do you provide? What is the value? Do they come to you when they're looking 2 to 3 years in advance, when they're looking to sell their company or exit? And do you
Uh,
help them through that process?
Ideally, they come to us within a year and a half of we wanted to be out. The process can take anywhere from between 6 months to a year and a half, but there's some preparations to be done. When we start talking to the company, we like to get all the details of the industry, the markets, and the financials, and see what weaknesses we can identify. And if they're weaknesses they can address. So once they address all the weaknesses, is the right time to go to market. So when the buyer is doing due diligence, they don't find the skeletons in the closet. They don't find things that are used to either walk away or lower the value of the transaction. That's the first thing. We try to provide clarity of what the company needs to be, where the company needs to be in order for them to have a successful exit. Number two is we look for a hidden value in the company. We saw a company that they had two lines of businesses. One of them was a pure installation services, which was on a project basis. The other part of the business was a recurring revenue contractors maintenance business that had a lot of value. And while they knew that they have some value, they didn't understand that the most of the value of the company was the service and maintenance business, not the contracting. So we have to change the mentality to say, you're not selling a company that just sells products or installs products. You're selling a recurring revenue base. That on
Yeah.
top of that, you can sell other products to clients. So we kind of
Yeah.
we flipped the script around in like that. We have a lot more traction with the transaction. So we look for different ways at what buyers are looking for and how to position a transaction to actually close.
Good, good. And it's US and domestic or cross border?
We, we,
Do
we,
you
we,
work?
we work all over the globe in reality, but we're mostly focusing on the US, probably 70% of our work. Latin America is maybe 20 and 10% has been Asia Pacific.
Gotcha. Awesome. Cool. So what major shifts are you seeing currently in your industry right now?
We see rotation from industries to industry. Some industries that were in high demand a few years back, they're no longer in some other industries. For instance, manufacturing and construction, they are in very high demand. So you can see how those companies are growing. They're getting a lot more attention from potential buyers, while other companies that are consumer discretionary are a little bit not seen as hot anymore. Just we're in a scenario with high inflation, or not high inflation, but inflation, and the expectations of the consumer are lowered over the last 12 to 14 months, as opposed to manufacturing, which is all coming back to the US, and the US is starting to pick up the manufacturing pace.
Yeah. Yeah. And what about tech? Or is it manufacturing that you kind of only go after? Is it tech and manufacturing, AI?
No, what happens for us, what happens in tech is integrated. Like, for instance, we've sold medical device companies. They were technology that developed the medical device, but it's a medical device, therefore it's a healthcare transaction.
Mm, yeah. Okay.
So unless we're looking at into software or AI, tech is embedded in other industries. So I mean, we've done transactions with manufacturer of processors, PCBs, and all that. We call them manufacturing company, even though it's a technology-driven company. Yeah, and then when it comes to AI and all other software players, we're not extremely active there. Many of them are more early stage, more VC-driven transactions, and we play more in the middle market.
Okay. So in the middle market, when it comes to, certain trends going after tech and manufacturing, yeah, how has it impacted your business growth strategy? Is it in a good way?
Well, when it comes to tech, we try to implement the latest and greatest. So for us, AI has been a help, allows us to create our process more efficiently and more affordable as well.
Yeah.
So we lowered our cost of operation slightly. We're expecting a little bit more. We've been remote for so long, so we've always been tech driven in the company. When it comes to doing transactions, there's some sectors that we're avoiding a little bit just because of the emergence of certain technologies that we think that it's going to be challenging. Like a small software company is going to be more challenging these days than it was 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Why do you think that is? It's because some software companies can be antiquated or heavily saturated because they got too many customers and they're sharing the same data.
Our research shows is because software used to be a solution provider, now it's becoming a tool.
Yeah.
When you move from a solution to a tool, your valuation lowers, your expectation of growth lowers. So it's harder these days to value a software company. They're still great. They still do, they're good, great companies, but just that they play in a different world right now. They're no longer a solution, but a tool.
Yeah, a tool. Yeah, interesting. I like that perspective because in some cases, certain softwares or applications that you use for your company, it is a tool and it's not necessarily a solution. And then there's so much competition when it comes to software as a services or certain applications that people would use. I would say you're 100% accurate on that. It's definitely becoming a tool, which does hurt their valuation. That's definitely for sure. So, what's working well for you guys right now, and what's been frustrating in the market?
What's been working well for us is using remote and offshore providers to help us with the work. We have too much work. We can approach them. They deliver in a very timely manner. That's what we are able to work on more transactions simultaneously these days than we used to be able to do it 5 years ago. What is hurting us, I think, is all the noise going on there. Business owners saying, okay, I'm thinking about selling, but wait, we have a war. Wait, we have tariffs. Why do we wait? We have this inflation coming. All that noise creates uncertainty, and uncertainty prevents people from selling or buying at that level.
Yeah, it definitely can cause some disruptions, but it seems like you stay afloat and you stay steady when it comes to looking at the right types of companies that you want to invest with.
Yeah, you kind of have to have open eyes and be open minded these days to really find the value in company.
Yeah, especially when you want to invest with your time and resources, because like you said, it takes what, 6 months, 8 months just to even finalize and close a deal, right? And then maybe there's situations that could arise after 6 or 8 months that kind of extend it.
There are always situations. There are always situations. If situations don't arise, we don't think the deal is going to close. Until those situations arise, we actually feel that the deal is going to close.
So, like, which metrics are you most focused on improving now, passive or active?
Metrics in our business, or
Yeah. More deal flow, whether it's passive or companies actively seeking to sell in the next year and a half or 2 years or so down the road. Is there certain metrics within your organization for Creso that you guys are focused on right now for this year?
yes, first is the owner operated businesses. Second is, what kind of transaction they're looking for so we can give them the right advice. And third is, are they ready to do that transaction? Like, say, for instance, they're looking to raise capital, but they still may not be profitable enough. So we have to tell them, work on that. If they're seeking to sell the company, but they have, tax issues, or they have certain cleanup in the balance sheet, maybe they need to get rid of some employees, we advise them to do it now. So we look at why a transaction can be delayed, address that, and we can provide the necessary advice. Or, for instance, a seller said, you know what, I really want to sell my company, but if I don't get 50 million, I cannot retire because I have all these obligations and all the different things. Because after taxes, it varies. So we tell them, okay, you may not get there right now, but look at, based on your projections for next year, maybe we should delay 6 months to 9 months on the transaction. And we can say, yeah, we feel very confident that we can get you that number.
Yeah.
So it really depends. We're trying to always match the expectations of the client. We don't like to oversell ever.
Yeah. So that's good then. That means you're transparent, you're working with them so you can get them their, 3x or, certain X multiple on what they're looking for. But you let them know in terms of expectations, hey, this is going to take some time. We have to move through X, Y, Z, and then we can get it there for you.
Correct. And sometimes, unfortunately, that we don't know that until we're in the middle of a transaction, and it's happening to us right now. We have a transaction in which there was an issue in the company that they thought it wasn't not going to be important. By the time we went in there, it became very important, so it delayed the whole transaction. But we're working through it, but it takes time and it takes a lot of explanations and a lot of research. Yeah, we always try to be as prepared as possible to provide the right outcome.
Yeah, definitely. Do you ever get companies that try to move the needle too quickly? Like they come to you and they're looking to exit in 6 months or too soon, but they haven't prepared yet, and you have to explain to them and kind of give them some background on how things really work. I want to sell my company right now, 20, 100 million.
I had those. I had those in which they say, I'm ready to sell. Do it yet today because they got pissed off at something,
Yeah.
and they take a breather and they said, okay, now we're gonna don't worry, we're gonna go through the process. They want to follow the process.
Yeah.
There's always those scenarios. So there's scenarios. Some folks want too much for the company, so they say, okay, I want to sell. I want right now 25 million, but you're worth 15. The
20
you're worth 15. It's like, okay,
Yeah. Okay. And then you break it down to them. Oh, it's actually going to be worth this amount, and this is what you'd be looking at. So do you,
of course.
when you advise as well for the buy side on behalf of the seller, you make sure terms are favorable for both parties involved? And is there a slow exit strategy for certain founders or CEOs when they exit the company, or is it like a retirement setup that you set them up with, or how does that work?
It's all at the end of what the seller is willing to do. Some sellers want to get out as much as possible right now. Some other ones want some liquidity now and a bigger liquidity later. So I mean, we've done all sorts of deals. Normally, we like to see when we sell the company the first time is that the seller has enough money to retire or close to, and the other part, the second bite of the apple, is going to be nice and large, but they don't really necessarily need that to survive. That's what we try to achieve. Certain cases, some people spend more money than we think, so that they need a bigger number.
Yeah.
So the second bite of the apple, maybe. But I like the folks like that in which they're very optimistic of their ability to succeed.
Yeah. So
Yep.
what would you tell someone or a founder who is ready to exit in the next 2 years and they're exploring M&A advisories? They got a few firms that they're looking at, and you're one of them.
Well, what we tell them is, you know what our expertise level is. We know exactly what their pain threshold is. We've worked almost exclusively with guys that have founded the company and raised them, and I know how they treat them as part of the family. We are aligning with them. We're not there to just make a quick buck and leave. They can look at our track record and talk to our previous clients. The most important thing is they need to feel comfortable that our mission and our job is to do the best we can for them. And when I say the best we can do is you do not want to go into a transaction with the wrong expectations and not get the outcome. Going through sale, it's a long, tedious process. It burns people down. It burns the management. It burns the sellers. It burns everybody. To not close a sale on an M&A, it's painful. We want to make sure that if we go through the process is going to be complete. That's the most important thing.
And that's why it's good for them to come to you when they're ready to be prepared 2 years in advance before the
Yeah.
exit, right? Okay.
Yeah, year and a half, it's ideal
Mhm.
because it's gonna be 6 months to prepare them.
I see. Gotcha. Awesome.
Yeah, we don't do all the tax advisory or other operational advisory, but we look at the company. We tell them these are the areas that you need to be focusing on, so we can go to a successful exit.
Yeah.
And in many occasions, they need to work on that.
And what's your portfolio size? How many companies have you helped?
I mean, I've been doing this for 30 years, so I mean, last time I looked at my deal sheet, I think it was like 54.
54. Wow. Yeah. That's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, when I started early on, you do a lot of transactions when you are associate and a VP because you're helping different partners. Now, when you become a partner, you do a few less, but you're more in charge.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, I see. Very cool, man. Yeah. So where do you see, Creso Capital in the next 6 to 12 months or beyond down the road?
Oh, ideally, this year is going to be a great year. We can get 3 to 4 transactions closed. We just in the pipeline. We should have more than that, but try to be conservative. And a year from now, I would like to double the efforts on bringing new clients, and that also a good economy will help with that.
Yeah, definitely. Jose Kreidler, thank you for joining us on Growth Xperts Podcast. It's been a pleasure. He is the M&A cap markets guru. So if you want to check him out, you can see his profile located on LinkedIn, and make sure to check out his website. That's cresocapital.com, cresocapital.com. Thank you so much for joining us.
Derek, thank you very much.
Awesome.